All right. So chapter 12 is our last chapter. That's exciting. I mean, if you can't be happy about other things, be happy about that. And this is about selling and primarily advertising and consumer protection. Um, and advertising is an interesting thing. Has anybody here taken marketing, SBM 111 marketing course? Okay. Okay. So in that course, you learn about all the 4 Ps of marketing, and really advertising falls into the P called promotion, right? How we promote our products. And there's a lot of ethical questions about, is it okay to market in certain ways to certain groups and so forth. And so that's kind of what we're talking about here. So I'll start. Let's see if this works. We'll give you a video if it will run. You guys know this one.
Hello, ladies. Look at your man. Now back to me.
Oh,
Now
no
back at
audio
your
for
man.
you.
Now back to me. Sadly, he isn't me. But if he stopped using lady-scented body wash and switched to Old Spice, he could smell like he's...
That's too bad. You got to hear the audio, right? It's in my ear, which is weird. So for some reason the computer switched over. Yeah, I'll do like, hello, ladies. Right here. All right. Let's try that again because it's important for the lesson.
Hello, ladies. Look at your man. Now back to me. Now back at your man. Now back to me. Sadly, he isn't me. But if he stopped using lady-scented body wash and switched to Old Spice, he could smell like he's me. Look down. Where are you? You're in a boat with a man your man could smell. What's your head? Back at me. I am. Is it what's the duty is that thing you love? Look again. The taste are now died. Anything is possible when your man smells like Old Spice and not a lady. Of course.
So I was looking at this on YouTube, and this guy, this commercial has 55 million views just on YouTube. They also ran it on TV, and as far as a branding commercial, is one of the most successful commercials of all time, as far as getting people to think about what is the brand and what does it mean. Let's see. So there's kind of 2 ways of advertising. Informal advertising, or I'm sorry, informational advertising, which is just getting information across to people, right? This product is 3 times as likely to reduce sweating than this product or whatever. And then there's what's called branding advertising. Yeah, this is one of my favorite Old Spice. The fact that they print this on there on the stick, right? If your grandfather hadn't worn it, you wouldn't exist. So I just think it's clever, right? And actually, as it seems tongue-in-cheek, and it seems a little risque, which is what they're going for. But if you think about it from an advertising or a promotional standpoint, it's actually really smart, and it's really a complex set of things that's happening here. Rather than telling you, buy our product because it's 2 times more longer lasting than its competitor, or buy our product because it will make you smell good, they're trying to sort of create like a persona around their product. Okay. So this is like a persona of masculinity, right? If you think of the commercial we just watched with, I forget the guy's name. He used to be in the NFL, and I am not afraid to admit he's a handsome man. Okay. They never made a claim about the product other than like it can make your man smell like me. That was like the only claim. Okay. Of course, it gave all of these strange sort of like unconnected things that made it seem like an assumption. Like if your man smelled like him, he'd be as handsome as him, and then he'd have tickets to that thing you love and diamonds, and he'd be on a beach and shirtless, and like, and what? and a horse. Uh, but of course, nobody would seriously look at that commercial and say they're making a specific claim that this product's going to do that. I don't think so. There'd be maybe somebody would be like, false advertising. I don't look like that guy when I put on Old Spice. But mostly what they're trying to do is give an image and a feel for the product, and it's worked really well. After this ad campaign, do you guys know what the Old Spice, the next campaign they did? It was the Terry Crews campaign, right? And Terry Crews, another ex-NFL player, I believe. He's giant and incredibly masculine, and it's the same idea, right? Like it just created this like aura of manliness surrounding their product, which is interesting because Old Spice has been around a long time. Okay, your grandfather may have worn it, probably did, according to that, and their product was kind of languishing. And so they got together, a group of advertisers and marketers, and said, how do we make this resonate with a younger generation, right? Probably, how do we get our old person cologne to be something that the Axe generation will use? And they've done really well with a form of branding advertising to build that brand and have that brand mean something to you. And what it means is masculinity, apparently. The textbook talks about, and if you take marketing, you kind of learn that a brand is kind of what's left of a company if you take away everything else. So if all of the Old Spice factories in America simultaneously burned down and they were left with zero capacity to produce their product, and all their trucks blew up and they had zero capacity to deliver the product that they can't even produce anyway, is there any value still left in the brand? If I was a rich guy who could buy something, would I pay for the Old Spice name even if there was no capacity to build it, that I was going to have to start from scratch with the factory and everything? And the answer is probably. Okay, some brands are worth a lot. What's the Nike brand worth? And based on their branding, what do you think their brand means? What do you think? What are the things right now? It might be the whole uproar, right, that's going on. But generally speaking, what does the Nike brand mean? Quality. And I still, even though they do lots of other apparel, I still link them to shoes. I know if I buy Nikes, they're going to last longer than the Walmart brand of shoe or something like that. Anything else? Okay. So if you wear Nikes as opposed to store brand, you'll have cooler shoes. You'll be cooler than the guys who didn't. You'll run faster and jump higher. Maybe like when you were a kid, right? Do you remember the light up shoes? When you were little, you thought those are going to make me so awesome. Yeah, I saw that. So think about the brand and the companies that have really positioned their brand well and what message they've got to you. Walmart, what do we think of? Even if we hate them. Yeah. Live better. That's where they're trying to position themselves. I don't know that that's where we're at. I think we're still at save money with Walmart. Although I will tell you, from an unobjective, fact-based viewpoint, your life is probably better because of Walmart. Maybe not if you work there, but the average consumer has access to way more products in way more rural areas now because of the distribution networks they've developed than they would have. Now, there's other arguments, right? Like, well, yeah, but you have access to cheap crap, and there's some kids suffering in Indonesia in a sweatshop because of that access you have. So you can make broader ethical arguments. But as far as, my ability to go down to the grocery store and buy bananas that were picked in South America or Central America 3 days ago, that existed before Walmart, but they really have perfected the process. Okay, and so maybe it really is live better, but I think that their brand still says. I think a lot of people still think of it as a cheap place to go with a lot of variety and with liberal return policies. I think like that's kind of what they've put out there. Okay. So think of the brand. And so if you're going to be a business owner or a manager someday, you should ask yourself, like, what does my brand represent, and what do I want it to represent, and do I just have to be at the mercy of what customers post on my Google site or my or Yelp, or do I, or can I sort of drive that? Okay. All right. So here's my big question for you. First question of the day: do ads need to tell the truth? What are your thoughts? Do they have to? So you said yes, unequivocally. All right. I agree with you. So the next question is, what does that mean? Was that Old Spice commercial we just watched? Does it meet your standard? No, no. If you say that in order to be ethical, they need to tell the truth, were they unethical with that commercial? But that's the challenge of, like, we all know what the truth is and what a lie is. But I think they would say to you, like, we honestly, we did not expect anybody thought that we were making a claim, a product claim there. And usually when we say we want it to be true, we're talking about product claims. If you say that the product is fit for human consumption, then it should be fit for human consumption. It shouldn't poison me, right? Or whatever. But it becomes muddier when it's like, you just implied that I would be way more handsome if I used this product. And I don't know that that's really true. My favorite is, like, you ever watch, so sometime when you're home during the day, flip on like Lifetime channel. Right? Lifetime is television for women. That used to be their tagline. I don't know what it is now. And watch the commercials. Don't watch the show. You can watch the show if you want, if you're into Hallmark movies or whatever. Okay, they're going to be on there. But the commercials during those Hallmark movies will go something like this. I'm a busy mom, and that's why I buy Clorox clean wipes, because I'm a good mom and don't want to poison my children with bacteria and germs. And you're a bad mom if you don't use this product, right? She doesn't say that, but her implication is good moms who care about their children will use this product, and the rest of them just want their children to get E. coli poisoning or something. I don't know, right? Yeah, choosy moms choose Jeff. So you could be a choosy mom or some crap mom who just gives their kids great value peanut butter from Walmart, right? Like, so that's a real common genre in advertising to women, is to imply that you're a good wife, mother, woman, person if you use this product, and if you're not, well, you're kind of questionable, right? Like, that's what's the one they always put out there for men? Chicks will dig you if you use this product. Am I wrong? Like, if you open this can of beer, suddenly you'll have women all around you that are gorgeous and into dudes that drink that beer or something. It's so ridiculous. And yet, and there's tons of other things, but those are just two major implications you see in a lot of, and actually they've gone away from that with the beer advertising lately. And the more common one you'll see with beer advertisements is, if you're drinking this beer, you're having fun. Right? They'll show people doing fun stuff while they're drinking the beer. And you're like, parties and the tailgate with your friends, like, there's some truth to that. But probably like 2/3 of beer is consumed sitting like in your lazy boy chair, like, I hate my job or something, like, and so I don't know really what percentage of beer is consumed in what manner. All right. So Riley, I didn't call on you. You had your hand up earlier. Did I talk over it?
I think there's a big difference between like covering and like, oh, if you use this, whatever, you can smell like green, like that commercial.
Uh-huh.
Like saying stuff that's kind of like dramatic and like exaggerated, and saying like on cereal, or like, oh, if you eat this, then kids will. Making something exotic.
Your bone density will be 3 times greater, and you'll be able to absorb a hit from an NFL linebacker,
Exactly,
right?
yeah.
If you drink this milk or something. Yogurt, it's good for getting hit by NFL linebackers. Yeah, so that's why. So we start kind of at the most obvious, like false claims, which is like just a lie about what a product can or can't do or is or isn't. And then it moves to more generalized things, like how about claims that conceal facts? Like we don't tell the whole truth, or we just sort of leave this truth out. Like when you ask your parents if you could go out with your friend, and you don't tell them that really you're going with your friend to this party where that kid that they really think's a bad influence on you is going to be, because if you tell them that, they're going to say no. But if can I go over to Sally's house? That one's going to fly, right? So we leave out pertinent facts, and then ambiguous claims like using this product makes you a good mother. That's pretty ambiguous. What does it mean to be a good mother? It probably is independent of any product you might use, or using this product will make you a good, a loyal husband or something. And then to puffery. Who knows what you mentioned a little bit what puffery is? Can you give us a definition?
Like puffery is where you just say like, oh, Captain Crunch is the best.
Right. It's talking up a product, right? In some way that's not really measurable. Like, so every single one of us on our resume, right? We don't lie, but we make ourselves sound as good as we possibly can sound for the given situation. Every single person on every dating site ever, right? I wonder if like someone tried the refreshing, like just like on dating sites, if it was just like, yeah, I'm a pretty boring person, but like if you're looking for someone to watch like watch a movie with or something, like I wonder if that would work. Like somebody would be like, that's refreshing. I don't know. I've never done a dating site. I got married when I was 18, so.
I watched about 1,000 heifers a day looking to make their 1,000.
But I bet you for the right woman, she would see the humor in that and be like, this guy might be fun. Another would be like, did he just refer to women as heifers? So anytime you do that, you take a risk of offending, anyway. All right. So pretty much the legal response, which you'll learn more about if you ever take legal environment of business, is that you can, the Federal Trade Commission regulates commercials, and they regulate all forms of advertising, okay? The thing is, do you know how many advertisements there are in the world? This is an advertisement, right? We put this up and say, take our classes. They're late start ones, so you could still jump into one if you want. That's our claim, right? These are short-term and late start, and so you could still get into a class if you need one more on your schedule. That's about all the claim we're making there. So any poster, any sign, any radio ad, any Facebook posted ad, those are all under the auspices of the FTC, which means their job's pretty much impossible. So to try to limit, because of the giant scope of it, they use something called the reasonable consumer standard. And really what that means is, well, what would you guess it means from its name? Good. Yes. And what it really means is we're going to try to focus our efforts in enforcement on those things that we think would be deceitful to a reasonable, normal person who was trying to exercise reasonable due caution in their consumerism. In other words, things that are obviously like this guy, it's obviously a joke. Okay. They're not going to go after that. So if one person gets fooled by that and buys it and is like, are you freaking kidding me? I don't look like this guy now. I never magically appeared on a beach on a horse. They're just they're not going there because it's silly. Okay. Also, for areas that require some sort of extreme expertise or knowledge, they're probably not going to go there. In other words, they're going to say the consumer who's buying a product that is very sophisticated, if you're buying MRI imaging equipment, it is now your job to really do your homework and figure out what is good MRI equipment and what isn't. So they're going to focus on this more middle standard. And that means they do a lot of going after people for false claims that relate to things like food, clothing, consumer household products, right, that the average person buys and that the average person reasonably expects to be safe for consumption or things like that. So that's kind of what they mean by this reasonable consumer standard. They're focusing their efforts on the products that could be dangerous to people and more like the average person, not on, Boeing, let's say American Airlines is mad because Boeing didn't make their jet a certain way. Well, the expectation is if you're paying $55 million for a jet from Boeing, you're going to do some due diligence. You're going to have engineers whose job it is to ensure that jet meets the requirements you need, right? All right. So just some ethical issues in advertising. So kind of these are split, like some of these are on the side of advertisers. Like I should be able to say whatever I want in advertising. It's free speech. Why can't an advertiser just lie? What's wrong with it? It's their business. It's their free speech. If customers don't like it, they won't come shop with them. Why does the government have to get involved? Right.
Of course, they're going to try to make it look the best because to them, it is the best. So you should buy it. But to others, it could be like the worst. So.
Right, kind of like my granddaughter who was homely when she was born, but we still thought she was the cutest thing on earth because she was our granddaughter. And now you look back at some pictures and you're like, objectively, she was kind of funny looking. Like, now she's adorable though because she's grown into it. Right here, adorable. Okay. She was a little, she had these weird ears. Okay. Anyway, so yeah, to them it is the best. Obligations for the marketer to serve their employer's interests, or a duty, right? My employer is asking me to sell this product. So I have a duty to them to sell their product. But then the question is, what's the right of the consumer? What do you think? Can you boil it down? What do you think is the right of a consumer in our society? Boil it down to a statement or two? What rights ought a consumer to have? So you think it's a reasonable right of a consumer that if someone is selling a product, it should be safe for the use that it's made for. Okay, that's called an implied warranty, by the way, when we assume that something, that hey, if you're selling food, you're implying that it's safe for consumption. Okay, that it's not going to make people sick or hurt them. If you're selling medicine, then you're implying, that it will be good for the use that it was for. Yeah, Teresa. Uh-huh.
They do it, but it just made me think how we just assume everything is because it's in our stores, but over there, you just don't know.
Right.
And just having that reassurance here, that everything is safe.
Yeah, much as people hate the American government and the federal government's always in my business, it's a pretty big shock to us when somebody gets sick from eating food purchased through our food supply. It's pretty safe, right? That's not the same in all places. And worse in some places and better in others. But our food supply is relatively safe in the U.S., and that matters to us. We like the fact that the government will intervene there. So does everybody disagree with the things that have been said? That a consumer should have a basic right to expect safety if they use a product for its intended purpose. Like, you can't, if people buy guns and misuse them, they shouldn't be surprised that it could hurt somebody, right? Or even if you misuse a car.
So it's actually the opposite of what it was supposed to do, so you buy more chapstick.
I don't know if there's a story. I don't remember that story. I feel like that about chapstick. Like if I never wear it, I'm fine. But if like one day they're feeling chapped and then I wear them, then I like need chapstick like ever after. I have to like wean myself off. I don't. My wife's the chapstick person. I just steal hers. All right. She's like, have you seen my chapstick? No, like that. That's not really a lie, by the way. That's self-preservation. That's different. And then, I think this obligation to serve the employer's interest and truth-telling, I think we all agree with both of those, that as an employee or whatever, I should serve my employer's interest. and that I should tell the truth. And it's when they crash into each other that I'm like, okay, what's my greater moral obligation here? And a lot of people will be like, well, that's easy. It's tell the truth, or that, but not everybody would agree with that. I mean, the military trained me to lie, right? We had cover stories on certain missions we'd go on. And so in that situation, if it was sell out my government and the rest of my team and potentially get the rest of my team captured or hurt, then I was going to lie, right? So truth telling, as important as it is, there are situations where we might think, we'll suspend that. And then good old Immanuel Kant and his treating others as a means to an end, right? If we are less than forthright with people about products that they're buying, then we are treating them as a means to our own ends. Whereas if we're truthful to them and giving them the absolute full truth, then in allowing them to decide, then even if they end up being a means to our own end, we're not treating them as such. And that's the big difference. Do you think there's products that if they had to list every possible problem with it, that maybe nobody would buy? Like if there was the same Surgeon General's warning on that there is like on cigarettes, on like Twinkies, that listed out like, what it could do to you if you eat this product? Or do you think people would still buy them?
People still buy cigarettes.
But it's a decrease that happens.
Do you think people don't know that Twinkies are bad for them?
They taste good, that's why people eat them.
Right. Just like cigarettes, right? Although there's the addiction factor with cigarettes. Are we addicted to? I don't know. I haven't had a Twinkie in a long time. I used to love them as a kid, and now I haven't had one in a long time. So
And it disappeared for like
yeah, I don't.
I don't even think they disappeared that long.
And should there be different standards for things that are addictive, or things that are marketed primarily toward kids, right? So the next section of the book, they talk about consumerism. And there's a thought on consumerism. The idea is this, that we tend to identify ourselves with the products we buy. I don't know if I buy that or agree with that. I know some people who are very brand conscious say about their vehicle, right? The whole Ford Chevy thing, right? There's people that's a big deal for them. And there are probably people out there who identify themselves by, I'm a Ford person or a Chevy person. I know that as far as brand loyalty, Jeep has done a good job of people who are Jeep people, like identify themselves as Jeep people. Okay. Probably some people feel that way about certain brands of clothing. I'm a great value guy. Yeah. Because I look at whatever they got and whichever one's cheaper, I just get that one except for a few products. I'm brand loyal when it comes to toilet paper, ice cream. You know what? I like Safeway Select. Safeway store brand is really good. I mean, if I'm feeling rich, then I'll go for Bluebell. But I work at a college, people. I don't have unlimited resources. Anyway, so this we identify ourselves with the products we buy, and then if we are what we buy, then we need to buy in order to be. The idea that our existence is built upon consumption. And if you think about the way we measure things in the United States, there's something underlying that. Do you think there's people that could still live in like a total subsistence life without any consumption? In other words, they raise all the food and gather all the food that they eat. They make the clothes they wear. Yeah, the Amish. I don't know, man. They're selling a lot of quilts to people, so I don't know what they're doing something with that cash. They got card readers. I'm like, how does that work? You can't use a zipper, but you can use a card reader. Anyway, can't use zippers, man. It probably depends on the Amish person. To like lump everybody together is not fair, right? It's kind of like, can Mormons dance? I'm like, well, I know some Mormons that can't dance at all, but it's not like a religious prohibition. They just suck at dancing. All right, but like. No, the Amish, I'm sure there's different groups and different sects that have different rules that they live by, but their intent is to live this simpler life. back to an older time, right, and not change after that. And even that in some groups that it's sinful to embrace sort of a more modern culture. Um, but we are pretty driven by spending money in this country, and not just in this country, but here and in many parts of the world. And so then we're like, okay, if we think buying and consuming goods is part of who we are, can we, through advertising, create desire that's not there? Or are we just tapping into desire that people have? You think that we're creating some desire?
I mean, otherwise it's still like, just regular clothes, same clothes that people wore in the 80s, or,
Same clothes I've been wearing till they wear out, then I'll get some other ones.
Dude, but I'm thinking
What style? I don't care what they got there. Okay, but yeah,
magazines, commercials, advertising has literally shaped people to think of, oh,
that McDonald's
this is
advertising shaped me,
this
right?
is
Yeah.
this.
No, I agree with you. I agree that, some people have this theory that all of the basic human desires are there. And so what marketing and advertising does is it just taps into those and says, hey, our product X here will fulfill this desire. But that it's not creating the desire is there, and the product is meant as a fulfillment tool. Other people say, no, you are getting people to want things that they never wanted before. And if you look at probably like obesity epidemics and things like that, we could say that we have learned to want high sugar, high fat diets more than what we used to want them, right? Partially because they're delicious, right? Um, and then the next question is, do advertisers have a responsibility to restrain their power? Or is that paternalistic? And by paternalistic, I mean, are we trying to tell people how to live their lives, or should we kind of let the free market decide, let advertisers put whatever they want out there and let individuals choose? Like, the idea of suing McDonald's because you got fat is kind of silly in one sense, right? Like, you knew their food wasn't healthy, and you have the right to not buy it. And yet, on the other hand, we know that there are certain groups of people who are, say, children, for example, who are not as capable of sort of resisting on that basis, on the basis of logic. And how do we square that?
That's the parents' responsibility.
Okay. Okay.
Because the parents the parents buy the stuff for their kids, so it's on them.
What about teenagers?
That's
They still they need self-control. You're going there eating everything you like, there's problem.
Okay. So we're talking about McDonald's right now. Then why is it illegal for me to sell pornography to kids? That's on them. That's on their parents. They should have self-control. Why do we allow the regulation of some things, the sale of some things, but others we're like, how do we decide, and what do we regulate and what do we not? Because a Big Mac is kind of pornographic in some way. Has about the same effect on society. Probably when I said that, like some of you pictured someone biting a Big Mac and like the sauce dripping down their face, and it was like sensual. Sorry. All right. Yeah. You're like, no, but really. So tell me. Okay, here we are. We have a room of future senators. Public policy. How do I decide when to regulate and when to say this needs to be on the individual? Because if I overregulate, then I'm being, the term is paternalistic. I'm being their daddy. And if I underregulate, I'm just letting anarchy go. How do we decide? Age? What's the age? Okay. Right, the whole drinking age, right? You can be drafted at 18, but you can't drink till you're 21. That rightfully pisses off 18, 19, and 20-year-olds. Uh, any line you draw is arbitrary, right? Like, but I don't disagree with you. Uh-huh. Okay. And so the whole age of majority adult, we could argue about 18 or 21 or whatever, but that does seem like a reasonable point at which to say, hey, if you want to do this, you're an adult, you can, and under that you can't. But it does feel arbitrary at times, right? Like there's, I don't know, I see high school kids with tattoos all the time. What's the legal age for a tattoo? And then what? Is that true? Is this law, or are you guys just what you've heard? Well, because you're like, right. Sophomores are 16. That's when they turn 16. Sophomore year. Okay. Yeah. So anyway, but you get my point. And then we say, okay, well, tattoos, our concern with tattoos is that they're permanent. So maybe you shouldn't make permanent decisions when you're 16 or 15 or 14. Um, did you look it up just now? And so there's the part of me that's like, want to grab the parent by the shirt and like slap him and be like, don't let a 14-year-old make that choice. What's that? Or no, I think there's plenty of parents who are like, yeah, or like, now we're in the club together, we get, people, a lot, we have a little society here in Thatcher, Arizona that tends to see tattoos as a pretty significant vice. I think there's other families who don't see it that way, who see it as art or see it as something they share, right? So we have to be careful not to put our views on the whole community.
I actually see it like important because they're like memorable, like, oh, this quote is in honor of my sister.
Mm-hmm.
We have this quote together. So
mm-hmm. Yeah. Right. But there's a whole generation of Polynesian kids who just think they look cool and have no care for what their ancestors believed. It depends on the individual, right? But that's why we can't say, no, you can't have tattoos at all, because to some people it's very meaningful. And to other people, it's really cute or whatever, right? And so I'm not allowed to say, well, because you think it's meaningful, you can have one, but because you just think it's cute, no, you can't have one. And so age tends to be a way that we tend to limit that. But it's hard. Let's see. So then they break this down into consumers and their protections. And I'll just quickly go through these. So this is kind of the way things were done in the United States up until about the 1920s, where there was this assumption that every consumer was a wary consumer. And they believed in something, the Latin term for it, so the legal term was caveat emptor, which means let the buyer beware. So there was like zero government regulation. Right, you probably read about them selling medicines with like mercury in it. That's how they treated syphilis. They injected mercury into you. Well, we know mercury kills people, right? But at the time, it was like the doctor said so. So you just, and so it was up to the individual to find out whether or not they wanted to buy a product. And it was completely on the individual, and there was like zero protections. So this gives maximum freedom, maximum assumption that the consumer is wary and intelligent and is not going to be fooled, and minimal protection. This still exists to some degree in the world, right? A lot of private transactions. You buy something at a yard sale, you recognize that as a caveat emptor transaction. That, I'm going to ask this guy, does this toaster work? He says it works. If it doesn't work, I don't have a lot of recourse. Like there's nobody I can go to get my money back. But we figure, hey, $2 for a toaster. I'll give it a try, and if it doesn't work, no biggie, right? Secondly is this contracting idea, something you mentioned, where we have this reasonable thing. When we sell things to people, there's an implication that they work for the purpose they're intended to work for, okay? in the United States, there is an implied contract of what's called merchantability, that on any product that you purchase from a business who regularly sells products. So that implied contract isn't there if you buy at a yard sale. It's not there if you buy it at an auction. But if you go to Walmart, there's an implied contract between Walmart and you, the consumer, that their goods will do what they're supposed to do. The food will be safe to eat. The clothes will not fall apart. The tires will actually go on your car and not blow up on you. Okay, so that's contracting, an implied contract. We have liability lawsuits. You can always sue somebody if you feel they've breached that contract. And that ability to sue is what keeps a lot of businesses honest, right? Even people who wouldn't be honest if they're afraid of getting sued will be. And then there's government regulation, the Federal Trade Commission, like I mentioned already. And this is happening more and more. And it's kind of a good thing, except that people get carried away with it. You ever look at the blast page, right? They have a Gila Valley blast where people go on there and say, this business sucked and this business didn't take care of me. And they tell everybody about it. Social media has really increased our ability to tell everybody about it. Some marketing studies have said that the average consumer who's happy with your business you've provided will tell 1 to 3 other people about it. Like, yeah, we went there, they took really great care of us. The average consumer who's unhappy with your service will tell between 8 and 12 people about it, right? And then social media has blown that up even bigger. And I think it's a meaningful form of regulation, the ability for people to communicate with other people. And then finally, this assumption that consumers are capable. The person who like researches everything and checks out how many stars it was given on 5 different websites and reads all the stats on it, and then they finally choose. My secretary just bought herself one of those robot vacuum cleaners for her house. She's like, I know I'm getting old and that's what I want for my birthday is a robot vacuum cleaner. But she did a lot of research. And really, if we all did that, we could almost be back to the idea of caveat emptor, but we realize it's our job to do the research. And that really does maximize economic function within a society. If each consumer sees themselves as responsible for ensuring what they purchase is good, and each producer of goods realizes they're responsible through implied contracts and through the likelihood of lawsuits, that's when the function really hits a nice equilibrium. So that producers are trying to stay legal and keep people happy so they don't get blasted on the blast page or on Yelp. And consumers are trying to do all the research, do their homework, and make the best purchase they can. What that will do is it will weed out the total crap products. They'll just fail. People won't buy them because they're being smart. And it will weed out the overpriced products because people who've done their research realize at some point, some price level, a $2,000 suit isn't that much nicer than a $500 suit. And so that's what helps us reach some equilibrium. And that's all.